Hi everyone, welcome to today's class in which we are going to start with a very important chapter, Human Health and Diseases. Now health and disease both are two sides of the same coin. As long as we are enjoying and we are feeling comfortable, we say that we are healthy. And suddenly a virus may breach our defense mechanism and achoo, there is sickness. So what all do the various philosophers and the modern day scientists think about health and disease? This is what we are going to discuss today, and also some of the important diseases caused by viruses. So let's begin our topic today, and that is human health and diseases. Now you see, if we talk about the earlier times, then according to Hippocrates. Now Hippocrates is considered as father of modern Western medicine, and he was of the opinion that within the body there are four humors. Now humors is a Greek term for fluids. So there are four fluids in the body, and those fluids have to be maintained in balance for proper health. If one or the other fluid is imbalanced, that brings in illness. So that was the concept behind the humoral theory of Hippocrates. Now what are those four humors in the body? So according to this theory, their four humors were yellow bile, black bile, phlegm and blood. Now out of this, they used to think that if this black bile is in greater amount, that brings in fever. And earlier the system of medication used to be bloodletting. That means they used to cut a particular blood vessel and allow the blood to flow out, that all that bad humor will be flowing out and again health will be restored. However, that ended with the life of some of the patients. Later, when the entire circulatory system was discovered, and that was by William Harvey, that this humoral theory got discarded. Back home, if we talk about, it was Charak, who also has a similar connotation about health, and according to him, there are three things in our body, that is the bile, phlegm and the wind, and these have to be in important balance, and this is the basic premise behind our Indian system of medicine, that is Ayurveda. As we said, the discovery of the blood circulation by William Harvey, and he used various experimental methods. By that, this good humor and bad humor hypothesis was discarded. And he found that in the body there is nothing like black bile. Now we know that since we have studied the entire anatomy. As far as the term yellow bile is concerned, now we use it just for the bile juice which is produced by the liver. Phlegm is considered the mucus which is released from the body when we cough out, and blood of course is the main circulating fluid in our body. So this humor theory has been totally disproved. Now the new definition for health, as it has been given by the World Health Organization, this defines health as a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and it is not merely absence of disease or infirmity. So according to this definition, it is really difficult to think about that whoever is actually totally healthy, because physically we might be healthy, but there might be some kind of mental disorder, even a phobia, that is fear of the spider, that is also a kind of mental disorder. Even that shows that entire person with entire definition of health is not possible in any one person. Now coming to the next part, that is mind and mental state. This can affect the health of the person. So accordingly, health is affected by, there are genetic disorders, the defects which are passed on from generation to the generation because there has been a mutation in the DNA. So that mutated DNA in the chromosomes is passed on from parents to the child, and accordingly the child will have the disease. The other one is the infections. Now, these are acquired from the surroundings, and in the surroundings, we know there are a number of bacteria, viruses, fungal spores are there, helminth infections. All these infections we can acquire because of contaminated food or water, maybe through the air, through the food that we are taking, and that will also affect the health. And last but not the least, lifestyle. Nowadays, the maximum disorders are because of the lifestyle, because we are having a sedentary lifestyle. Our food habits are not as which should be along with the lifestyle. That means if we are eating very rich food and we are not exercising, even that will result in disorders. So these kind of various problems are there which are affecting the health. Now, what are the requisites? That means what all is needed for maintaining good health. So hygienic and balanced diet, of course, that is first and foremost. Clean drinking water. So proper potable water is the fundamental right of everybody. Personal and community hygiene. That is, if we maintain hygiene, that is proper bathing and keeping the body clean, keeping the hands clean after doing any job, washing it with soap and so on, that certainly is personal hygiene. But if our surroundings are unclean, then our personal hygiene will also be not so effective because infection is surrounding us. Regular physical exercise so that we can keep all our joints and body parts in proper working order. Awareness about diseases. So one should know that which all diseases can be there, and usually in the newspapers at times, in the TV news, we read about certain diseases which are spreading as an epidemic, sometimes a pandemic, that is from continent to continent it is spreading. So in that case, we should know how to protect ourselves. So first it is the awareness and then comes the protection. And immunization. So for number of diseases, the vaccines are available. So if we can get ourselves immunized by taking those vaccines, we are protected from those diseases. Proper disposal of waste, because in the waste, number of organisms, they multiply. The houseflies, they will be sitting on those wastes and transferring as mechanical carriers the infection to the food and the water that we are using. So even that can affect health. And of course, control of vectors. Like we know, number of diseases are spread by insect vectors, especially mosquitoes. So if we can control the mosquitoes in our surrounding, we can also control the spread of diseases. Now next, what is a disease? Since we have talked so much about disease. Now disease comes from two words, dis plus ease. That means when the person is not feeling comfortable, there is some kind of ailment in the body, that would be disease. So any physical or functional change from the normal state that can cause discomfort, that can be categorized as disease. Now diseases can be broadly classified into two, that is infectious diseases and the non-infectious diseases. Now coming to the non-infectious disease, because in this chapter we will be mainly studying the non-infectious diseases, and in this the diseases can be organic. That means due to malfunctioning of a body part, a body organ is not functioning properly, like heart diseases. There is an impaired valve in the heart, or the conducting system of the heart is not working properly. So that would be under the category of organic disease. The other one is deficiency diseases. Deficiency, as the term denotes, that in our diet there is some nutrient, maybe a vitamin, that is in lesser quantity. And even if the body is not secreting a certain hormone in proper level, that can also be considered as a deficiency disease. For example, beriberi, which is due to deficiency of vitamin B1, that is thiamine. Diabetes, that is due to the problem with insulin secretion or maybe the change in the receptors, that is a deficiency disease. Allergies. Now, allergies don't occur to everybody, but some people, they are hypersensitive to certain substances called allergens. And these allergens are harmless otherwise, like pollen grains. Now, pollen grains are harmless, but the immune system has become active against those. Whenever it is exposed to the allergen, it will mount an attack, and that will create problem with the body. So allergy as such we will be discussing later in this chapter in a more detailed aspect. And last but not the least, cancer. This again will be our discussion in the later part of the chapter. This is caused by uncontrolled mitosis. The cell keeps on dividing, and that too is because of mutation in the DNA of the cell. So these were some of the non-infectious diseases. In this chapter, however, first of all, we are going to take up the infectious diseases. Now, infectious diseases are caused by pathogens like viruses, rickettsia, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and helminths. So these are various causative agents which can cause the infectious diseases. And these diseases are easily transmitted from one infected person to a healthy person. That is the reason these are also called communicable diseases. So infectious diseases are communicated from one person to the other. Now, what pathogen is exactly important, or which is the causative agent for a disease? To find out that, Dr. Robert Koch, who was a German doctor, he found out certain ways by which we can pinpoint the pathogen for a disease. So now let us discuss about those Koch postulates. After defining health and disease, now let us discuss Koch's postulates. Now, before Koch gave his view on the pathogens which are the causative agent behind a disease, earlier people used to think that the reason for a disease could be because somebody has a bad eye, or maybe there is bad karma coming from the last birth, so on. So many views people used to have. But now, due to Koch postulates, we are very clear that the causative agent behind the disease can be a pathogen. So how to find out? So he gave 4 criteria to establish a causative relationship between the microbe and the disease. Now, the first point that he gave was that microorganism must be found in abundance in the organism which is suffering from a disease. And so if an organism is sick, so from the tissue or the blood sample or urine sample, we should be able to find out a particular microorganism. And that microorganism is not found in the healthy organism. So this is the first point of the Koch postulate. Now the next is that this microorganism that we have isolated from the tissue sample of the sick animal should be allowed to grow in a pure culture medium. So this organism can be cultured in the lab so that we can increase its number. Now from here we move to the third postulate, and the third postulate states that the cultured microorganism which we have grown in the lab culture should be able to cause disease when it is inoculated into the body of the healthy organism. So if the same microbe, we take it from the culture plate and inject it into a healthy animal, even that healthy animal will start showing the same symptoms as the previous sick animal was showing. And lastly, the microorganism should be isolated once again from this newly inoculated, diseased animal in which we had injected the culture medium. So from there we should be able to isolate that particular microorganism once again. So this way, by carrying out these postulates one after the other, we will be able to pinpoint the causative agent of that particular disease. So even today, we utilize these Koch postulates. If there is any new kind of ailment seen in the all over the world, in any region of the world, and suddenly we see that people are suffering from a particular kind of problem and the particular symptoms are there, the same Koch postulates are applied on them so that we can find out that which microorganism is causing this disease. Now, these Koch postulates are very clear in pinpointing, but at the same time, there are some exceptions to the Koch postulates. Now, the first exception is, of course, the viruses. Viruses cannot be cultured on an artificial medium. They require a host cell. So, they are exceptions to Koch postulates. However, we will still apply Koch postulates, but viruses will have to be cultured in a live culture, that is inside eggs or maybe in live tissues we'll have to culture them, and then only we can find out that which virus is causing the disease. The other one is mycoplasma. Same goes with mycoplasma. These also do not grow in artificial culture medium. Chlamydia. Chlamydia also requires live host cells to multiply. Mycobacterium leprae, that is the bacteria which causes leprosy. This has to be grown in the eyes of armadillos, and then only we can study about the effect it is causing on the organisms. And last but not the least, we can mention Treponema pallidum. This is again a bacteria, a spirochete bacteria, which causes syphilis. Now, this bacteria also doesn't grow on an artificial medium. It has to be grown in the testis of rabbit or rats, and then only further studies are possible. So usually bacteria are able to grow on an artificial culture medium, but these are some of the exceptions which require live culture mediums. Now, coming on to the next part, that is the modes of the transmission. How a particular infectious disease is transmitted from one person to the other. Now, the mode of transmission can be categorized into two, that is direct and indirect transmission. Now, first of all, if we talk about direct transmission, so here direct transmission is contact with the infected person. So, the person who is having the disease, when you come in contact with that person, that is either you touch that person or shake hands, so there the disease would be transmitted. The other is droplet infection. That is, there are number of disorders which are in the respiratory system. So when the person sneezes or coughs, there is a fine mist or aerosol spread in the environment, and anybody else who is inhaling that mist will also get infected, because in that mist the pathogen is present. And even saliva. Coming in contact with the saliva of the infected person will also come under the category of droplet. The other one is contact with the soil. Sometimes the spores are present in the soil, or maybe the larva is present in the soil, and while we are walking barefoot on the soil, we can catch that infection. Another category of direct transmission is animal bite. As we know very well, rabies is spread by the bite of a rabid dog, and even other wild animals can spread rabies. And last but not the least, transplacental. Transplacental would be from an infected mother to the fetus via placenta. Now, placenta is a connection between the fetus and the mother through which exchange of nutrients, waste, these all take place, and many of the pathogens can also cross the placental barrier. So, if the mother is infected, the infection will pass on to the fetus. The next is the indirect transmission. Now, indirect transmission would be through arthropod vectors. Like mosquitoes, we mentioned that mosquito might be biting patient. So, the pathogen comes into the mosquito, and that mosquito, when bites a healthy person, the pathogen is transferred to that healthy person. So that would be through arthropod vectors. Vehicle borne. Now vehicle borne would be through food items, like food items, ice or water. Through that, if the transmission is occurring, that is called vehicle borne. Another one is fomite borne. Now fomites are the articles which are handled by the patient, like the computer mouse, the pen, doorknob. So a person who is infected, and that infected person, when they touch these items, the pathogen is transferred to those items, and when a healthy person touches it, then they may get this infection. Like common cold, it is one of the most infectious disease known to humans, and the person who is suffering from common cold, their hands are certainly number of times going to their nose, and the virus is being transferred over there. And when they touch the door handle, the virus is transferred there. And next, somebody else who is going, they touch that doorknob, and then their hand goes near the nose. That much is sufficient to catch the infection. So that would be fomite borne. And human carriers. Sometimes there are certain humans who are harboring a particular pathogen in their body while they themselves are not showing any symptoms, but they are the reservoir for that particular pathogen, and from them it can be passed to another healthy person. So these are the various modes of transmission. Now coming to some of the common diseases in humans. Now these common diseases in humans we'll be studying under various heads, and in these we'll be taking up viral diseases, bacterial diseases, there would be protozoan diseases, helminth, and finally the fungal diseases. So these are the 5 different level of diseases that we'll be discussing, and here we are going to start with the viral diseases. Now viruses are such small acellular, you can't even say they are cells, because they just have a DNA or a RNA which is surrounded by protein coat, and in some of them outside that protein coat, that is capsid, outside that capsid there might be a lipid envelope, and these viruses can multiply only inside the host cell. So they require the host machinery for division. So we'll start with these viruses, such small, tiny structures, but the type of diseases that they cause, that is a long list. So we'll be taking some of the important diseases that affect humans, and the first viral disease which was discovered, that was yellow fever. And yellow fever is spread by the bite of Aedes mosquito. Yellow fever is not found in our country, but it is found in the Latin American countries, and it is caused by viruses. So we'll be discussing some of the important viral diseases, starting with common cold. So after going through the Koch postulates, we are clear with that infectious diseases are caused by the pathogens. And in these pathogens, starting with the viruses, so taking up some of the common human diseases caused by viruses. So the first viral disease that we are discussing, that is the common cold, or which is also called rhinitis. Now the pathogen which causes common cold is called rhinovirus. The word rhino comes for nose. Now this virus is a single-stranded RNA virus. That means the genetic material within it is RNA, single-stranded RNA, and it is a naked virus. That means outside the protein capsid there is no envelope. So you can say non-enveloped virus, or you can say naked virus. Now the mode of transmission for common cold is droplets, that is the infected person when they sneeze or cough, then fomites, that is articles touched by the person, and also direct contact. Now the symptoms of common cold are that it infects the nose and the respiratory passage, but not the lungs. So you can say the upper respiratory tract is the region which is affected by the rhinovirus. and it is characterized by the nasal congestion. So there will be lot of mucus produced inside our nasal cavity, so that will cause congestion and we'll have difficulty in breathing, and this mucus will also be discharging from the nose. There is sore throat as well, and hoarseness in the voice, cough, headache, etc. And for viruses, we don't have any antibiotics. So our immune system itself has to take care of them, and that it will do in a matter of 3 to 7 days. So nearly in a week's time, you will be clear from that common cold. But you must have seen that common cold is really very common. So next time when you get an infection, so it is a slightly different virus which has undergone mutation, because these RNA viruses are highly mutable. So once when we get an infection, our immune system recognizes them and develops memory to fight them later if they come. But next time when the common cold virus attacks, it is actually a different virus. So again, our immune system has to develop memory against it, and that is why number of times we get common cold in our lifetime. Now coming on to next disease, that is influenza, or which is simply called flu. Now influenza is caused by a virus by the name of myxovirus, and this myxovirus is an enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. The mode of transmission, again, it is droplets, and if we talk about the symptoms, it starts with fever, headache, sore throat, cold with sneezing and pain all over the body. So overall malaise would be there, that is discomfort. And in neglected cases, complications like pneumonia, bronchitis, and even ear infections may develop. Now influenza also subsides in a week usually, but there are some strains of this virus which are very, very dangerous, and they may prove fatal as well. Like usually in the spring season, when the seasons are changing from cold to warm, at that time usually influenza attacks occur. The virus is very active, and there are different strains of virus like the bird flu virus, swine flu virus, and in these some of them are really very, very dangerous. Also, during that time when bird flu spreads, a short-term vaccine is developed, and that short-term vaccine is able to protect the person from the flu attack. However, these vaccines, as I said, are short-term, because in the next season when again the virus becomes active, it will be a mutated form. Being a RNA virus, it is again highly mutable, so we don't have a long-term vaccine which once we can get and be free from influenza altogether. So from here, moving on to next disease, that is smallpox. Now smallpox is caused by variola virus. This is a double-stranded DNA virus, and it is an enveloped virus. So enveloped double-stranded DNA virus. Mode of infection, droplets as well as fomites, and in these the symptoms were fever, chill, backache, headache, and usually by the third day spots started developing on the body, and these were large spots with fluid filled inside them, and those were called pustules. And the fluid present inside the pustules, if another person is coming in contact with that fluid, even that person will get infected. Now the rashes of smallpox were more on the face than on the body. However, they were on the body as well, but more on the face, and if the person survived, then permanent pox marks were left. And smallpox was the first viral disease, or first disease you can say, which got eradicated. So it was eradicated from the world thanks to the vaccine developed by Dr. Edward Jenner. And he had developed the vaccine for smallpox in 1798. And this vaccine was administered to each and every person all over the world, and as a result smallpox no longer occurs. Now next one, that is chickenpox. Now, chickenpox is caused by varicella virus, and this one is also a enveloped double-stranded DNA virus. The mode of transmission is once again droplets, fomites, as well as direct contact. And symptoms, here also there would be fever and itchy, blister-like rashes they develop on the skin. Now, in chickenpox, the rashes are more on the body, that is on the torso, and lesser on the face. And in chickenpox, the rashes are smaller sized, while in smallpox, the name is a smallpox, but the pustules were quite large ones. But in chickenpox, those are very tiny rashes which produce lot of itch on the body, and the person has to scratch it at times. They feel like scratching, and when these rashes they dry, the scabs come off, and these scabs also are infective for the other person. Now, once chickenpox occurs in life, usually it doesn't reoccur, but the virus is never flushed out of the body. The chickenpox virus, via the nerve endings, it reaches up till the spinal cord, and it will stay there all through life. So it will become your lifelong companion. It will remain in the spinal cord in a dormant stage. Sometimes, however, it may become active. So not necessarily, but it may become active, resulting in very painful rashes on the body, which are called shingles. So shingles is the term used for chickenpox, which reoccurs later in life, and that is not necessarily that everybody would get it. However, now chickenpox can be prevented, as a vaccine against this varicella is very much available, so one can get the vaccination done. Now, coming on to another viral disease, that is measles. Now, measles is caused by rubeola virus. Now, this one is a enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. The mode of transmission, once again, is droplet. The symptoms are fever, sore throat, and here also rashes appear on the body, which are rosy red with a whitish center in between. And These rashes have been given a specific name and they are called Koplik's spots. So Koplik's spots are the characteristic symptomatic rashes of measles. So these are various ways because the doctors can identify smallpox from chickenpox and measles by the difference in the type of rashes which are produced on the body. And measles also is preventable by the help of a vaccine. There is a vaccine MMR which provides protection from 3 diseases: mumps, measles and rubella. Coming on to next viral disease, that is mumps. Mumps is caused by paramyxovirus, which is enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. Mode of transmission once again is droplets as well as saliva, and symptoms are inflammation and swelling in the parotid gland. Now parotid gland, you know, are our salivary glands. So the 3 pairs of salivary glands that we have, parotids are the largest in size, and it is inflammation and swelling in those glands. And sometimes if the immune system is too weak, then there can be secondary symptoms also, that this virus can move from parotid gland and affect various other organs like even the heart, testis, ovary, so on, and that can have more damaging effects. Mumps again is preventable, as we said, by MMR vaccine. Now coming to the next viral disease, that is rabies. Now rabies is caused by rhabdovirus. Now rhabdovirus is again an enveloped single-stranded RNA virus, and here the mode of transmission is through the bite of infected dogs. It can be also jackals, wolves, cats, etc. However, most people, they come across a rabid dog because usually dogs as pets or street dogs, those are the animals which usually we come in contact with. Now a disease which is spread by the bite of one vertebrate to another, such disease is called a zoonotic disease. So rabies is a zoonotic disease. Now in rabies, the symptoms would be fever, headache, excess salivation, muscle spasm, paralysis, and even mental confusion. And here the virus reaches to the central nervous system and it multiplies in the nerve cells. So in the nerve cells, some abnormal granules are formed which are called Negri bodies. So these Negri bodies are the classic characteristic feature of a rabies victim. And rabies, once the symptoms arise, it is 100% fatal. That means there is no way to prevent death. So the only way out is to get a vaccine as soon as the person has been exposed to the bite of the animal. That is usually within 72 hours of the bite. And in rabies, another very classic symptom is there, that is hydrophobia, the fear of fluids or liquids. The person has such painful spasm in the neck that they fear the intake of water or any other fluid. So even that results in acute dehydration. And after the appearance of symptoms, there is just a matter of few days when the person dies. Taking up some more representative viral diseases. So next viral diseases from our kit is poliomyelitis. Now poliomyelitis, or simply called polio, it is also called infantile paralysis. That is, it affects children, but it is not necessarily that it can affect children. Even adults can be affected by polio if they have not been vaccinated. Now the pathogen causing polio is picorna virus. Now picorna virus, as the name itself is giving a hint to its genetic material. Pico, that is 10 to the power minus 12 of a meter, and RNA. So that 2 words have been combined, picorna, and that's how we get this word. So this is a single-stranded RNA virus which is naked without any envelope. The mode of transmission of this virus is fecal-oral route. Now fecal-oral route means that the person who is infected is passing out the virus in the fecal matter. And these feces, if they are contaminating the food and water of another person, then the infection will be reaching to the healthy person as well. And here the houseflies can also act as the mechanical carriers, because when the feces are in the open, the houseflies sit over them, the virus sticks to their body, and when these houseflies, they visit a place where food is kept and they sit on the food, they are transferring the virus to it. So this is how the virus gets transmitted. Now the symptoms would be paralysis as the virus reaches the spinal cord, and in the spinal cord, if you remember the structure, in the ventral horn, the motor neurons are present. So it is going to damage those motor neurons. So the motor nerves reaching to the muscles will no longer be able to send impulses to the muscle, and the muscle will fail to contract. So that results in muscle paralysis. So usually when you see a polio affected person, you will find that there is paralysis in the leg or both the legs, it might be. However, if the virus has reached to a little upper region of the spinal cord, it may be affecting the nerves which are reaching to the diaphragm, and in that case the respiration would fail and the person would die. Now polio is the next disease which has been eradicated, and even in our country polio has now been eradicated by giving the oral polio vaccine to each and every child within 5 years of age. So that way polio got eradicated. And for this there was a pulse polio program which was started in 1994, so that every person knows about it and every parent gets their child inoculated by the vaccine. Now coming on to next viral disease, that is dengue. Now this is caused by arbovirus, which belongs to flavivirus group. So this can be combined and said as arboflavivirus. Now this one is a enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. Now the mode of spread of dengue, this is through the bite of Aedes mosquito. Now Aedes mosquito is also called tiger mosquito, and it is this mosquito which when bites patient and then a healthy person, the infection is transmitted. And Aedes are those mosquitoes which are more active during the day. Otherwise, if we talk about Anopheles and Culex, those are more active during the night. So those are nocturnal, but Aedes is usually active during the daytime. And the symptoms for dengue are high fever with headache, rash, and muscle and joint pains. And in severe cases, there would be internal hemorrhages and there will be excess bleeding as the platelet count decreases. So this virus actually affects the cells in the bone marrow which are forming the platelets, that is megakaryocytes. Now the platelets which are already in our bloodstream, they are without any nucleus. So virus cannot be affecting them, of course. So those platelets have a lifespan of just a week. So platelets keep on degrading while new platelets are synthesized and sent from the bone marrow. Now new platelets are not arriving, so that's why platelet count keeps on decreasing. And when it decreases beyond a certain limit, that results in internal bleeding and hemorrhages begin. So that becomes a deadly disease. For dengue as such, there is no vaccine as yet. The only way out is that we should be able to control the vector. And for dengue, when the person has very low platelet count, they are treated by giving them platelet. So through the blood transfusion, the entire complete blood will not be given, just the platelets will be separated out and those will be given to the person. And during this time, the person is asked not to have aspirin because aspirin has a blood thinning effect. So if more blood thinning occurs, in that case more excessive bleeding would be there. So that is why during the epidemic of dengue, one has to be very careful that if there is a fever, they should not on their own take aspirin, rather they should go for paracetamol, which doesn't have any blood thinning effect. Moving to another disorder which usually occurs at the same time as dengue, and that one is chikungunya. This one is caused by alpha virus, which is an enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. And this virus is also spread by the bite of Aedes mosquito. Here the symptoms include sudden onset of fever, crippling joint pain, and that's why it gets the word chikungunya, which is a word from African language which literally means doubled up. So the joint pains will be so immense that the person will have a difficulty even in standing straight and doing anything. Lymphoadenopathy, that means there is filling of the lymph in the tissues and there is swelling because of that. Conjunctivitis, that is inflammation in the conjunctiva, which is the mucous membrane on the inner side of the eyelids, and in extreme cases there may be even hemorrhages. And chikungunya also will take its time to cure, as we know that viral diseases cannot be cured by antibiotics. Now coming to the another viral disease, that is hepatitis. Now hepatitis as such, when we refer to this term, it is inflammation of the liver and it can be caused by viruses, even drugs, and even alcohol. There is alcoholic hepatitis because alcohol causes inflammation of the liver, and this could be other chemicals as well. But here we are going to discuss viral hepatitis, which can be of different types, starting with hepatitis A. Hepatitis A is caused by hepatitis A virus, simply abbreviated as HAV, and this is a single-stranded RNA virus. And this is again naked virus, not enveloped. The mode of transmission is fecal-oral route. As we said that from a infected person, the virus is passing out in the feces, and those feces, if they are contaminating the food and water of another person, the infection will spread. And the symptoms include anorexia, that is loss of appetite, malaise, that is overall discomfort all over the body, nausea, that is a vomity feeling, diarrhea, loose motions, fever and chills. And eventually jaundice appears. So jaundice is yellowing of the skin, nails, because of the bilirubin content increasing in the bloodstream. So that will be one of the symptoms of hepatitis. Now coming on to hepatitis B. Now hepatitis B is caused by another virus, that is HBV, hepatitis B virus, or it is also called hepadinavirus. Now again, the name of this virus itself is giving a clue to the genetic material present in it, and genetic material here is double-stranded DNA present inside the capsid, and outside the capsid there is an envelope. So it is an enveloped virus. Now the mode of transmission of this virus is through blood transfusion. It could be through sexual contact, saliva, tears, transplacental, that is from infected mother to the child, and also use of infected syringes or any other blood products. Now hepatitis B is the most severe of the various viral hepatitis that we are talking about, because this one has no cure. There would be yellowing of the eyes, jaundice will be occurring, abdominal pain and dark urine, and in chronic cases even liver failure will occur, and liver cancer can also occur as a result of hepatitis B. So if in childhood hepatitis B has occurred, it may become asymptomatic, but when that child grows up, reaching 30-35 years of age, by that time the virus would have caused sufficient damage to the liver, and that can result in liver cancer. So hepatitis B can be prevented because a vaccine is very much available, which is called Recombivax vaccine. So that is the only way out to protect oneself from hepatitis B. Moving on to the next type, that is hepatitis C. Now hepatitis C is caused by HCV, that is hepatitis C virus, which is again an enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. Now this is also spread in the same way as that of hepatitis B, that is through blood transfusion, use of infected syringes, there is sexual contact, and it could be transplacental, that is from infected mother to the fetus. And in this case also the symptoms are very similar to hepatitis B, but this is not so severe as that of hepatitis B. Next one, hepatitis D. Now D, this one is caused by HDV, hepatitis D virus, again an enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. Mode of spread is same as that of hepatitis B, that is through blood transfusion, sexual contact, saliva, tears, transplacental. However, there is something different for it, that this virus is considered as an incomplete virus. It cannot infect alone. It requires hepatitis B as a helper. So a person who is already infected with hepatitis B virus, that person only can get infected by hepatitis D virus. So these two, B and D, will occur together. And symptoms, again, they are clinically same as that of hepatitis B. And finally, coming to the last of the hepatitis caused by viruses, that is hepatitis E. Now here the virus is HEV, hepatitis E virus, which is a single-stranded RNA virus, a naked one, and the mode of transmission is fecal-oral route, just like hepatitis A. So hepatitis A virus and hepatitis E virus, both of them are spread through fecal-oral route. The symptoms are again jaundice, lack of appetite, that is anorexia, and nausea. In rare cases, it may progress to acute liver failure as well. So these were the various types of viral diseases. Now some more viruses we can discuss which have been lately in news, and from there we'll progress on to the questions. After going through number of viral diseases which are common among humans, let us discuss some of the viral diseases which have been lately in news. Now one of them was Ebola. Ebola is the name of the virus, which is a single-stranded enveloped virus once again, and Ebola causes a disease which is called Ebola virus disease, EVD, and it was also known as Ebola hemorrhagic fever. Now this is a very severe and often a fatal illness in the humans. Now this disease is spread from one person to the other if the person is infected, and it is from wild animals to the humans. So again, when a disease is spread from one vertebrate to the other, it is a zoonotic disease. So Ebola again comes under the category of zoonotic diseases, and once the humans have been infected, it can transmit from human to human, even through the semen. So it was found that male who was infected by Ebola, even after the symptoms had subsided, even though up to a period of almost 72 days, the virus was appearing in the seminal fluid. So this way, it will also be categorized as a disease spread through sexual contact. Now, the symptoms of the disease include fever, fatigue, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, and that is followed by vomiting, diarrhea, rashes, symptoms of impaired kidney and liver function also. Again, we don't have any vaccine as yet to protect from Ebola. From there, another virus which was in news, that was Nipah virus, written as NIV. Now this virus was first discovered in Malaysia. There was an outbreak in Malaysia and also in Singapore, and then later even in our country there was an outbreak in 2001 in West Bengal. And recently in 2018 there was an outbreak reported from Kerala. Now for this Nipah virus, the reservoir host are the fruit bats. The fruit bats you have studied in mammals, they are Pteropus. So that is a very much reservoir host, and these fruit bats, when they take the fruit or they bite through the fruit, through their saliva the virus can even go into the fruit, and when that infected fruit is taken by the humans, even that will cause infection. Also, it is transmitted by contact with the excrement or droppings of infected fruit bats, pigs, or from other infected people. So this will again be under the category of a zoonotic disease. Now in this disease there is fever, headache, nausea and vomiting, shortness of breath, and may worsen to include drowsiness, confusion and even coma. And in such a case that will be fatal. So the person may never rise from that coma. Then the third virus which we'll be discussing today, that is Zika virus. So this one is a virus which is again a RNA virus, enveloped virus, and it is a mosquito-borne flavivirus. So Flaviviridae family, remember the dengue virus belongs to the Flaviviridae family, and here again we have a virus belonging to the same family. So this is also spread by Aedes, and it was first time identified in Uganda, which is a place in Africa, and it was in the monkeys, and it was later identified in Uganda and also United Republic of Tanzania, that is again Africa. Now the mode of transmission of this disease is through the Aedes mosquito, and here the symptoms include fever, rashes, conjunctivitis, muscle and joint pain, and there is a Guillain-Barré syndrome, that is a neural disorder resulting in the muscles which are not able to work. So it's a kind of partial paralysis, neuropathy and also myelitis. Myelitis would be inflammation in the myelin sheath. And infection if occurs during pregnancy, then in that case this virus also transmits transplacental route, through the transplacental route, and this results in microcephaly. That means the head of the fetus will be too small, and such children when they are born, they will be having very small head, and accordingly they would be mentally retarded as well. So number of people in those regions have been affected by this virus, resulting in microcephaly in the newborns when the mother was infected during the pregnancy stage. However, in adults and in non-pregnant females, Zika is not so dangerous. Now, after going through this, let us take some of the questions. So here we have some of the questions which we have discussed from the topics today. Now, a disease which can be transferred from mother to child through placenta. German measles, that is rubella. This is also a viral disease caused by rubella virus, and it is similar to measles, but it is much mild. It's a milder form of the disease. That's why it is also called 3-day measles. Now, syphilis, this is a sexually transmitted disease, and here the bacteria which causes it, Treponema, it is able to cross the placental barrier. AIDS is again a viral disease which will be discussed in much detail later, but here too the HIV which causes it is able to cross the placental barrier. So in this case, it is all three of them that can cross the placental barrier. So our answer will be option 4. Now moving on to next question. Which of the following disease has been eradicated from the world by the use of vaccine? So here we have plague, poliomyelitis, smallpox, Kala Azar. Now, smallpox has certainly been eradicated. polio is on the verge of eradication because still there are few countries, just 2 or 3 countries in the world where polio still exists. So our best answer would be smallpox. And hopefully very soon we'll have an answer like 2 and 3 both. So here, for the time being, the answer is the third one. Now next question. Which of the following viruses is not transferred through semen of an infected male? Now first one, Ebola virus, which we have mentioned that it is certainly transmitted through the semen. Hepatitis B, this is sexually transmitted. Human immunodeficiency virus, which causes AIDS, this is also transmitted. Chikungunya virus. Now chikungunya virus is transmitted through the bite of Aedes mosquito. So in this case, our answer will be this fourth one. So let's take on next question. Now this one, which of the following pairs of diseases is viral as well as transmitted by mosquitoes? Elephantiasis and dengue. Now elephantiasis is caused by a helminth, that is by Wuchereria bancrofti. Yellow fever and sleeping sickness. Now yellow fever is certainly viral and it is spread by Aedes, but sleeping sickness is caused by a protozoan, and that one is trypanosoma and it is spread by tsetse-fly. Third one, encephalitis and sleeping sickness. Now encephalitis is again viral, but sleeping sickness is protozoan. And if we see the fourth option, yellow fever and dengue. Now this is the correct option because both of these diseases are viral as well as they are spread by the bite of Aedes mosquito. So here our answer would be the fourth option. So this brings us to the end of today's class, in which we have studied what actually the term health and disease mean, what are the various causative agents behind a disease, and some representative types of common human viral diseases. So that's all for now. In the next class, we will be discussing some more of the infectious diseases. Thanks for watching.